Many self-employed people fall into this trap of doing what's comfortable and fun instead of what really drives business forward. And so in this episode, we're going to help you prioritize the tasks that do just that and stop being distracted by the things that don't actually move the needle. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Shift Podcast. It's Evan and Matt, and we're recording right here at the Renaissance Hotel, downtown Denver, off of 17th Street. And we're here in the Trust Vault. Matt, let's dive in.
Yeah, this is a great topic because in my coaching and consulting work, I deal with leaders all the time who are stuck, right? They've hit a ceiling, they've hit a plateau, they're not growing. Maybe they were growing and they've stopped and they don't know why. And so that really is the core of my offer. I help leaders get unstuck. And one of the most common ways that I see them get stuck is they start to spend a lot of time and energy on things that really don't matter. Mm-hmm. Things that really don't move the needle, like you were saying. Maybe they're just putting out fires all day long. Maybe they're putting too much attention on their passions, their pet projects and things like that. Maybe they're just trying to fulfill the expectations that other people have put on them or that they've put on themselves versus investing the time and energy into what the business actually needs to grow and move forward.
Yeah. So the question is, like, why do we gravitate toward these tasks that don't drive business growth? I call it the feel-good trap. And I think the bigger issue here is, at least in my case, it was stemming from a lack of experience. And I think it's really normal to do in business and in life what comes natural, what comes easy. And so in business, we find ourselves working on these things that are fun, that are easy. And by the way, I don't think this is the same conversation as, focusing on your strengths versus weaknesses. I think that's a completely different topic.
I think the lack of experience thing is a big deal. And sometimes I think that we mistakenly believe that experience is a product of time, when in reality, experience is a product of growth and maturity, right? You could take two business owners who have both been in business for 20 years and say, well, they have 20 years of experience. But a guy who's been growing every year in his skills and his acumen and all of that for 20 years compared to a guy who just keeps repeating the same year over and over again 20 times, these are not the same in terms of experience, right? So experience is not just a product of time, it's a product of growth and maturity. And I think, in this conversation, it's important to understand the difference between what you like and what the business needs. What you like as a business owner is not always the same thing that the business needs. And sometimes you start a business in a particular field because you like that field, you have experience in it, you know the industry and all of that. And then what you find out is that owning a business in that field doesn't mean you work in that field. It means you work in owning a business and in running a business. And, think about it this way. Okay. If you say, well, I'm really into fitness and so I want to open a gym, that's great. But what you're going to find, I promise you, is that most of your time and energy is not going to be spent on fitness anymore. It's going to be spent on running a gym.
Yeah.
And so loving the field, loving the work itself, there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to understand it's a different mindset. It's a different mentality than just owning a business.
I think this is a blind spot that so many entrepreneurs struggle with, which is why we're talking about it. So imagine two separate entrepreneurs. Okay. We've got Bill and Bob. Okay.
Can we call him Billy and Bob? Billy Bob?
We can call him Billy and Bob, just for you.
Yeah, I mean,
so
there's a little Southern charm to it, I think.
We can do that.
Right.
We can do that for Matt. Sure. So let's say Billy, he focuses on things that don't drive business, right? He spends way too much time tinkering with his website, as we all have.
I don't know any business owner that does that. Right.
Okay. And you've got Bob, who only focuses on things like marketing and sales and dialing in the marketing campaign to drive deals and revenue, right?
Yeah.
Take those two entrepreneurs on a daily, weekly basis, okay? Those tasks that they're focusing on. Now, fast forward 1 year. Those two people are going to be in very different places. Their businesses will look different. Their teams will look different. Their revenue will look different. it's just going to be a completely different situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the difference you're describing is, where do they spend the majority of their time and energy? Is it on the things they like, or is it on the things that actually drive business growth? Which, by the way, is almost always going to be the harder things to do.
Always.
The things that we don't always like, don't always gravitate toward, don't always come naturally for us. Because if it did, we'd already be doing them. Right? We wouldn't even be having this conversation. There'd be no need to listen to the rest of this podcast if you were doing these things, right? Alex Hormozi, brilliant. I call him a business philosopher, right? Because he's not only like this business titan, but he really is sort of philosophical in his approach to all of it. So he's the business philosopher of our day. But he poses this question, and I think it's really brilliant. He really challenges business owners, entrepreneurs, to ask this question of themselves. What is the one thing that, if it changed, would change everything in your business? Yeah. What's the one thing that would change everything? Okay, that's the shift that we've got to make, is to begin thinking, okay, what's this one thing that could change everything in my business? And then his admonition is, now go spend the majority of your time and energy attacking that.
Yeah. So I want to go ahead and make a gear shift, and we're going to talk about the 80-20 principle, also known as the Pareto Principle. And this is just so fun to work through in your business. If you can apply this principle and first observe this principle, it gets really fun. The Pareto Principle states that 80% of your outcome is due to 20% of your input. And so this was first discovered by an Italian economist named Vilfredo Pareto. And he observed that 80% of the land was owned by 20% of the population.
Yeah.
Since then, it's widely used throughout business. Yeah. Now, I'll start by saying this, Matt. It's not about the percentage. So don't get hung up on the 80-20, right? So it could be the 60-40 or something like that. It could be 90-10. But the idea is that you're observing, again, that small percentage of input attributes to that larger number of output or outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think, we see this played out, on a lot of different levels in different ways. And like you said, it's not about the exact percentage, but it's about this principle. Hormozi actually talks about this as well in his portfolio companies. He said, and this is crazy, he said that what they've discovered is that 10% of their employees account for 90% of their revenue. Yeah. Which is crazy when you think about only 1 out of the 10 people on your team is actually bringing in 90% of the revenue, of the money into your business. And again, it's not about the exact percentage. It's going to look different in every situation. It's about understanding this concept that a small percent has leverage to impact a big percent. A small percent of what I focus on and give attention to is going to produce the large outcome in terms of my business results. And Hormozi, he actually talks about this too, going back to the one thing that changes everything. He said, hey, when you figure that out, just go ahead and block out the first 6 hours of your workday to working on that, which, again, not exact percentage, but it's kind of in that 80-20 rule, right? I mean, if you're going to work 8 hours a day, if 6 of them are going to be on that one thing, there's a reason why, because that's the thing that's going to actually move stuff forward.
Yeah. So speaking of applying this in your business, how do we do that, right? Well, first you need to understand, you need to have a good starting point, and you want to focus on areas of your business that actually drive growth. And we've been over that in a separate episode. But I'm going to give you the 3 core business functions, and that's going to be product market fit, marketing and sales, and money management. Okay. So those are any of those 3 are great starting points to go ahead and start observing and applying the 80-20 principle to your business.
Right. Well, and again, for clarity, we're not saying if you put 20% of your time into things, it's going to produce 80% of the outcome. Yep. We're saying find the 20% of all the things your business does. What's the 20% that actually moves the needle? Mm-hmm. The 20% that actually makes the difference. And now pour all of your energy and resource into that, because that's what's going to produce the results. Another way to frame this, because it's sometimes helpful to maybe approach it with a different frame, because it can feel overwhelming when I think about all of the different things I could focus on as a business owner, all of the, it's like there's unlimited options, right? There's all these things. So if you're not able to easily say, what's the thing I should be focused on, ask this question and you can back into it. What's the thing that holds you back? What's the thing that keeps you from growing? What would you say is the biggest constraint to your business, because that may be where you need to put the majority of your time and energy. I heard Elon Musk talk about this not too long ago. He said that CEOs should spend the majority of their time and energy on the things that are not working in the business. Right? CEOs don't need to put time and energy into the stuff that is working, because it's working. Like, just keep spinning the wheel. What they've got to do is put their time and energy into the things that aren't working, that are broken, that need attention, that need to be fixed, because that's where probably the greatest opportunities for growth are going to come for you. You're watching or listening now. That's what the question I would ask you. What's the thing that's causing the problem? What's the constraint of the business? What's the limitation? Is it sales, right? You're just not bringing in enough revenue. Is it marketing? We have great products and services, but nobody knows our name. Is it customer retention, right? We have a big front door, but a big back door. People don't stay. They don't buy again. They don't come back. Maybe it's product or service, the product market fit or the relevance piece, right? Like this thing used to fit, but now it doesn't anymore. Life has moved on. And so hey, it's the age of the automobile. We can't sell buggies anymore.
That's right.
Maybe it's team building. That's actually one of the most common constraints that I see in coaching and consulting is the team, or the size of the team is creating a problem. So again, it's another way to ask yourself, what do I need to do? If the 80-20 rule is really going to play out in my business, what's the small percentage of things that are going to create the biggest percentage of results?
That's right. Yeah. I think as we start working through this process as business owners, we've got to get comfortable with saying no and realizing that there's power in saying no.
Yeah. So important.
Yeah. You've got to be able to say no to the things once you've done the work to observe and you have the data. You've got to get comfortable to say no to the things that are time suckers and of course the tasks that don't drive revenue,
right?
That don't drive business forward. So strategy, this is the definition of strategy: a plan of action or policy designed to achieve a major or overall aim. So the way I'm reading this, at its core, at its face, strategy is the process of prioritization, or another way to say it is the process of elimination. So you've got to simply deprioritize the 80% of the things that you're doing in order to have the bandwidth and the energy to focus on the 20%, which are the things that actually drive business forward.
Right. Well, and I think another way of understanding strategy is to say that it is the allocation of resource, right?
Yeah.
Where am I going to put my resources, my time, my energy, my money, my manpower to get the biggest results? If you had unlimited resource, you wouldn't need strategy, right? If we had unlimited time, if we had unlimited money, if we had unlimited manpower, we wouldn't need to prioritize because we could do it all. And I think that there's a little bit of like a woe is me kind of trap that entrepreneurs, small business owners can fall into when they compare themselves to the titans of industry, right? I mean, you look at, the Elon Musk, you look at Apple or Microsoft or Amazon or Netflix. I mean, these companies are billion, or even $1 trillion, cap companies, and we think to ourselves, well, if I just had their resources, if I just had that. And the reality is even companies at that level don't have unlimited resources. They still have a limit. Now, their limit has more zeros than ours do, but it's still a limit. And so there's still a necessity for strategy, for allocation of resource, allocation of limited resource in the face of unlimited options. And there are unlimited options. So you've got to decide, where am I going to put limited resource in the face of unlimited options? And to follow that, do I have, and does my team, does my business have the corporate discipline to say, we are only going to focus on this one thing, or maybe these 2 or 3 things for a prolonged period of time, for 6 months, for 12 months. We're going to go all in on these things. Not that there aren't other good things, but these are the things, back to the 80-20, the small percentage of things that give us the biggest percentage of leverage.
Strategy, it requires prioritization, like we've talked about, but it requires ruthless discipline to say, there's a fire over there burning. I can take care of that. I'm even good at that. I might actually enjoy tackling that task, and I'll feel accomplished by doing it.
Right.
But it might not be the thing that's going to drive your business forward.
Well, and I think what every small business owner knows is that there's never a shortage of fires to put out.
Mm-hmm.
You could spend the rest of your career, the rest of your life putting out fires. And you know what I think is scary is that you can feel accomplished while accomplishing nothing.
Right. Yep.
And that's a terrifying thought, that I could feel accomplished while I'm actually not accomplishing anything. And, you know, I've heard people say, you know, 30,000 foot view, you know, sort of philosophical look at life, that the worst thing would be to get to the end of your life and realize that you spent it on the wrong things, pursuing the wrong things. And I think the microcosm of that for an entrepreneur, for a business owner, is to realize that at the end of the day, the week, the month, the quarter, the year, you spent 80% of your time on things that don't really matter, that don't really move the needle, that don't really move your business forward.
Yeah, dude, I love thought experiments, right? So let's do a little thought experiment, like a little science class here. Let's entertain this idea of applying the 80-20 rule to your business or to a specific area of your business. And you can just pick one, right? As I'm talking, just pick one. It could be anything. But my idea here is that in order for the 80-20 to be observed and to start working for you, because it is a principle, you've got to feed that area of your business with enough data for that to work itself out. And so 80-20 in a fraction, for example, simplified might be 1/5. So here's just an idea. Let's take, for example, your products or services, what it is that you're selling. For the 80-20 rule to really work, 80-20 principle to really work, you need to feed let's say you're a restaurant and you have an item, you have items on your menu. Give yourself 5 items, right? 5 different burgers, for example, because in the end, you're going to find that one of those burgers outperformed the other 4.
Absolutely.
And then we can do this in, let's say, marketing as well. If you are a small business, and let's say that you are getting all your leads from one marketing channel, go ahead and do yourself a favor for fun, create 4 other marketing channels. Have 5 total. That, by the way, that's just generally good marketing advice, is to have multiple customer acquisition channels.
Yeah, just like you would diversify your portfolio, you're diversifying your marketing. Yep.
Yeah. So I don't want to get too deep into this, but give yourself 5 marketing channels. One of those is going to absolutely outperform the other 4.
Yeah.
Matt, let's give the audience kind of a fun call to action.
Yeah.
A scavenger hunt, if you will. This week, go observe the 80-20 principle in your business. Go to your team members, go to your marketing team, for example, and say, hey, I need these metrics. Who are the 20% of my customers that are attributing 80% of my revenue? And then create an ICP, an avatar, an ideal customer profile around those people, and start generating leads based on that new avatar and see what happens.
Yeah. It's a great action step to kind of put it into practice. I think, you know, as we're wrapping up here, I think the biggest thing that we probably would say as the big idea, the takeaway, right, is that the majority of entrepreneurs and business owners probably are finding themselves in a place, especially if they're stuck, if they've plateaued, they find themselves in a place where they're spending way too much time and energy on the things that don't really matter. And so this episode is the call to say there's only going to be a handful of things that are going to get you big leverage in your business, and being busy with all the other things is not going to make your business grow. You can feel accomplished, you can feel tired at the end of the day, but it doesn't actually move your business forward. So when you employ the 80-20 rule, when you see the world through that lens, it begins to allow you to say, okay, what are the small percentage of things that give me the biggest leverage in my business? If that's something you're hung up on, maybe you're having a hard time figuring out exactly what that is. You know, you're so in the weeds, you can't see the forest for the trees, whatever it is. That's why we're here. We coach and consult business owners and leaders all the time. And so if you'd like to talk to one of us or both of us, we'd be happy to come in and just, you know, with fresh eyes, outside perspective, say, hey, we see that there's some massive gains that can be made in your business if you focused on this rather than that. If you put more, strategy, more allocation of resources into this thing instead of that thing. So, whether that's, one conversation or, long-term, that we can partner with you, we'd love to be able to do that. Reach out to us. All our contact information is in the show notes. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening on whatever platform that you are on. Would you like it? Would you share? Would you subscribe? Would you help us get the word out to more business owners, more leaders and entrepreneurs? Because we want to help people make the shift to get to the next level in life and in business. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.